Everyone has advice for first-time moms. Buy this, register for that, sleep while you can, yada, yada. But if I could sit down and have coffee today with a first-time mom, these are the things that I would actually tell her, the things that I deem to be important, the practical things, the emotional things, and probably a couple things that will surprise you. Let's hop in. Hi guys, welcome back to Tea Talk, where I drink tea and talk about whatever kind of crazy conspiratorial I don't know, all kinds of things. I need help with this intro, guys. I was going to go off on like Christian conspiratorial crazy conversations. Feel free to leave your thoughts, but I am here. Oh my gosh, almost dropping my drinks. But I'm excited today. Also, please ignore the, you might hear my neighbor is mowing his lawn. I'm hoping that my mic's not picking it up or that I can edit it in a way that you don't hear it or that it's not annoying. But that's what's going on. And I'm very excited today because this topic came from a viewer request. This was a question from one of you. And after you wrote in, another person or maybe a couple people chimed in like, I want to know too. And what was so exciting about it is that these comments came from people that have been following my stuff for like a long time. So it genuinely just felt super exciting. Basically, the question was, hey, Nikki, I am a first-time mom and I'm 7 weeks pregnant. And not only have I seen her on my channel, I've seen you on my channel and I was like, oh my gosh. And I'm just excited for anyone becoming a first-time mom. Not only was I just excited because I'm excited for every first-time mom because you have no clue how much your whole soul and world is about to be rocked, but particularly because you guys have been following me for so long. We've had some kind of touch point. One of my online friends, Grace, commented after and she was like, me too, I'm pregnant. I was like, this is you telling me you're pregnant? This is so exciting. So very exciting. So you spurred along this idea of first-time mom advice. And I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't have thought necessarily to make this video, but I thought, okay, you're asking me, I can give you my thoughts. I don't know that any of it will be groundbreaking, but I'll let you know what I genuinely think, what's on my mind. And so first-time mamas, let's do this. So I wrote some notes. I have them on my iPad and I'm just going to go down the list. I do want to give a trigger warning at the beginning. I feel like maybe potentially all my episodes need trigger warnings with how bluntly I speak. I'm still not used to the fact that so many things people say, they self-censor, they're censored online. I try so hard to be careful with my language, but I'm still not used to it. So I just want to give a trigger warning. This is going to be a really real conversation, really real monologue, really real thoughts. So first thing I have on here, okay? Ready, mamas? Prepare for birth. Maybe this is obvious. You probably expected this answer to come from me, but really prepare for birth. Realistically, the good, the beautiful, the bad, you could say maybe the ugly, really wrap your mind around birth and what that could look like. Do you have, if you're a home birther, right? If you're going to try to birth at home, do you also simultaneously know what hospital you would go to if something went down? Do you know the route to that hospital if something went down? Have you prepared your mind for what things could look like? I mean, assuming you're not getting a scheduled C-section, if your goal is to avoid a C-section, have you gotten your mind around what it would look like if you did have to have a C-section? And kind of not accepted it because, right? Okay, not that I really believe in you're attracting this to you, but there is a tiny part of me in a really vague way that's I don't know how the spiritual world works, obviously. I dig into the Bible, I pray for wisdom, but I don't know how it all works. And so there is kind of this thought I have in my head of you don't want to dwell on something and they say when you're driving or whatever, what you look at is what you drive towards. Oh, oops, we looked that way and we're drifting. I'm not even saying that's universally true, but that's a tip they'll give you. So I'm not saying to assume these things are going to happen or dwell too long. But what I am saying is to not do the opposite. I know quite a few people, even just personally in my real life, who did not want to wrap their mind around what could the quote unquote bad outcomes be? And are you prepared for that? Mentally or emotionally. And they just kind of had more, which, hey, this works for some people. That's great. I'm just spewing my thoughts, obviously. But they had more this mindset of I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about it. And they actually did end up having things happen that were not part of the plan, that were kind of low-key devastating to them at first. And they, processed it and It's fine. There is kind of this element simultaneously, obviously, of like birth is just one step in your motherhood journey. If you follow any natural birthing stuff, you'll see this conversation happens where people are talking about the idea of like, why do we put so much weight on birth when it's like, really, that's just like one blip in like the long journey of motherhood. And I simultaneously agree with that. Like, I'm very passionate about birth and the fact that I think that the hospital system in some ways has stolen the ownership of birth from women and therefore stolen a lot of like the mountain climbing journey and the joy that comes along with it. What is happening? I feel like there's so much noise happening around me right now. Keep bearing with me. So I do feel that way. And I feel like birth can be like, that entrance into motherhood is not no big deal. Like, people who try to play it down is like, meh. It's like, I don't resonate with that at all. But yet simultaneously, that thought of like, girl, it's just one step in your motherhood journey. I totally relate to that too. Like, whether, just the concept in general, but also like if something were to go wrong, it's like, okay, don't dwell on it. Like, moving on, now you're a mom for the rest of your life. But there is this element of like, I believe that pregnancy, like, you are a mom once you're pregnant. Not only because I believe life begins at conception, but also because you've probably already noticed that right away from the beginning, right when you get pregnant, for most women or a lot of women, it's like you are immediately faced with motherhood type challenges, whether it's like sickness or lack of sleep or decisions that you have to make or fear for your child and wanting to make the right decision. Like, all of those things, it's like, welcome to motherhood, baby, like, saddle up. So it is, all of it, the pregnancy, the birth, it's all part of that. And it's just a good idea to get your head around this. Before we hop right in, I want to give a quick shout out to our first sponsor of the video, and that is Honeymark. Honeymark makes my favorite super duper cute, modest, comfortable, so well made swimsuits. I have worn these swimsuits literally out to restaurants after going to the beach. They're amazing. They're multi-purpose. The fabric doesn't overstretch. They're breastfeeding friendly. They have a wide range of inclusive sizing. I love them. Just so cute. I've talked about them for years. The obsession is still strong. So check out Honeymark, and you can use my code, which I really appreciate when you guys do, Nikki10, and you get 10% off your order. Or even things like I wrote down lack of sleep. That's another thing. Like, to really be like starting to get your head around like, hey, when baby gets here, I'm going to have to adjust my heart and mind to like a new rhythm in life. And that's okay. And I think accepting that can also help with the somewhat brutal transition when baby gets here. Now, I don't want to like overplay the brutality of it, because your love for your baby and the joy of their tiny little hands and toes and all of that like outweighs the heaviness of like lack of sleep, all of that stuff that comes along with it, right? Being woken up, having to wake up to pump, or if you're doing formula, like the formula, like all of that. It's hard, but knowing it, like being mentally prepared, I think is part of it. Because on a side note, that's not a side note, it's like one of my favorite phrases, right? 2 years ago-ish, it was not this previous fall, but it was the fall before that. So when Lizzie was only like 6 months old, she had a case of croup, which is a very bad cough, lung sickness, infection situation. And when we took her to the doctors, we got the treatment, which we ended up going the route of like high dose vitamin C therapy. And we were also nebulizing. I don't remember if it was like hydrogen, like food grade hydrogen peroxide, or I know at one point we were nebulizing albuterol a couple nights in a row that we got from our doctor because she couldn't, like, she was having a difficult time breathing. But point being is, when my doctor sent me over the protocol, which I already knew all of this, you guys know I'm like the high dose vitamin C queen, but it's different and a little scarier when you're making health decisions in general, obviously for your children. But it was like a 30-page booklet. I don't even like to read. And I sat there and I like read like a crazy lady, like all the way through, because I just wanted to know what I was getting into. And yeah, turns out it's kind of just like adults, right? Where you just keep dosing till you notice stomach gurgling or any change in their bowels, like having diarrhea or whatever. But the most helpful thing in that pamphlet or in that booklet was they had about a page dedicated to the idea of, they're like, you need to take care of yourself and you need to be mentally prepared that you will not be sleeping for a few days to a week. Know going into this that you are going to be up at night, because if you know that mentally before going in, it will be 100 times easier than if you're just like, I'm trying to sleep over here and I can't sleep because my baby is sick and waking me up over and over, which sounds kind of selfish to like say out loud, but it is a thing that happens when you're being woken up over and over and over. You do battle yourself, your own selfishness. And that was the most helpful page of the booklet for me, because it's totally true. Like reading that and going, okay, all right, I'm going to be up with baby this week. That's fine. It like allowed me to shift my mindset around like, this isn't the right wording. I was going to say like, how do we make it fun in the middle of the night? Because it's not fun to be caring for a coughing infant. It's kind of scary. And I kept having to alternate between nebulizing for her, putting her near a cold open window because sometimes coughs respond better to cold, dry air. It's not fun, but you kind of flip it in your head because you're expecting it and you know it's going to be there. And so I like had different movies that I was turning on in the middle of the night, shows that I was like, okay, I can't watch this now, but I'm going to watch this tonight when I know I'm going to be up with Lizzie all night. And yeah, I don't know if that makes sense. So just having that preparation of like, all right, probably going to be sleeping less because that's newborn life, and just being mentally, like genuinely mentally prepared, and not just being like, I'm only focusing on the positive, I'm not going to think about any of this, but simultaneously not dwelling on your fears or potentially negative aspects of caring for a little human. Okay, so here's the next thing that I have on my list. Oh, I already said expect less sleep. Yeah, I mean, expect less sleep in general. I was joking with Dan this morning. I'm like, I don't think I've slept well since Logan was born. That's actually not fully true. Really, it's been since Lizzie was born. I haven't slept well. Even if she lets us sleep, there's other stuff going on because your body changes after you have a baby and whatever. This is a whole other tangent I could get on, like coming off of breastfeeding. My aches and pains are subsiding, but it's taking a minute as the relaxin levels lower in my body the farther I get away from pumping, from lactating. But yeah, I already had that expect less sleep. Okay, here's my next tip, mamas to be. Do your best. Do your best and do not get caught in a comparison trap. This is probably obvious, right? This is like advice for every aspect of life, but especially with motherhood, because everyone's journeys are so different. It's so unfair when you start comparing yourself to other moms. Every child is different. Okay, different with their physical needs, with their personalities, with how they learn things. Every mother is different with the resources that she has. And those resources could be money, time, access to food, whatever. It's just everybody's in such a different situation. To compare yourself and give yourself a value or a score in your motherhood abilities, like to some other, especially moms on the internet. Okay, especially moms on the internet. But it's just not a good thing to do. And I wrote on here, be honest with yourself. Do your research. I'm not saying like, don't compare and just like live in la la land and be, a mom, right? Like be honest with yourself. So versus like, am I just playing the comparison game right now? Or is it that I know deep down inside I should be doing something different and I could be doing better in this area? So be honest with yourself. Do your research around these things that you're trying to maybe implement in your life with your baby or decisions you're trying to make. Like, do your research because, while you don't know what you don't know, just general ignorance is something that is easy to regret in retrospect. I have a friend that she came to my baby shower when I was pregnant with Logan. And she was talking to me and she goes, dude, it's so cool that you did all this research on birth. She goes, do you know I never even thought about it until I was in the hospital giving birth to my third and there were some snafus happening. And she's like, I never even really thought about birth. I just was like, oh, I'm pregnant. My doctors will take care of me. Once again, maybe that's not a primo example, but that can kind of apply to a lot of areas in motherhood. Like we don't want to obsess. We don't want to beat ourselves up. But you don't want to just completely fly ignorantly blind. Like you want to put some thought into things and do some research, and then so that you can make the most quote unquote educated decision that you can. And you feel like, okay, I did my due diligence. You know what I mean? In general, the line I wrote on here is like, try hard, try hard at life, try hard at being a mom, but also give yourself grace. Like you are just a person. You're a woman trying hard to do the best you can for this little person, but you're also taking care of yourself. You're also taking care of your husband. You're also taking care of the house. Like you also have never been a mom before. And even if you have every child is different. So have grace with yourself as well, and be as kind to yourself as you would be to a friend. You know, like the way you talk to yourself, be that kind to yourself. Oh, I already said this. The fact that pregnancy is motherhood. It's preparing you for the emotional challenges that come along with it. Yeah, it's true. This next note is a little awkward. This is giving you insight into my regrets in my past. I've talked about this a little bit, but don't all out fight in front of your babies. Okay. I know that fighting is relative, right? Like one person's idea of a bad fight is another person's idea of a casual conversation. Like I do realize it's relative and there's a spectrum here. But for me, and my definition of fighting, early on when Logan was a baby, Dan and I had a couple of spats back and forth in front of Logan that were not productive. I mean, I guess they were kind of productive, but in the moment they weren't productive. They were not like good reflections of us loving and caring for each other well. And honestly, to put it into straight up Christianese, but we're just going to say it, we were both being very sinful. We were being very selfish and sinful, and we were hurt and tired and confused. And it's like, he's a baby, he's not even aware of what's going on. But I don't believe that in retrospect. And maybe that's obvious, but it's easy to get caught up in exhaustion and just emotions around things. And then in retrospect, be like, oh, dang it. And so that's one of the things, okay? Don't fight in front of your baby because you think that they're a baby and they can't understand anything. Like, I'm not saying never fight in front of your children ever. Like, working out disputes is something that I think kids, like, it serves them to see. But a dispute and like, we're sorting this out, we don't, we're upset, is different than like a full on, like a fight, an intense confrontation that doesn't, I don't know, that's below the belt, that doesn't represent your hearts for each other. I don't know. I feel like I'm wandering off because I can hear that Lizzie just awoke from her nap, but you get my gist. And also I have to keep going because I've got a few more points. Okay. So the next point in this video, I just want to throw this out there. You don't need a pediatrician. Okay. And that's not medical advice. I'm never giving people medical advice. I'm just sharing something that I didn't realize when I first had Logan, and now I get it, is the thought that you don't need a pediatrician, and you don't have to go to well visits, like to measure your baby and weigh your baby. I want to pause for the next sponsor of this video, and that is Equip. I love Equip. I've talked about them a bunch. They make a protein powder that doesn't hurt my tummy, and so many protein powders have hurt my tummy over the years. Their products are extremely simple ingredients, and recently I've become hooked on their protein bars, even more so than their protein powder. Lizzie's obsessed with them. Dan even likes them, and he doesn't like protein bars. I think my favorite flavor is the peanut butter, though I love the peanut butter chocolate as well. I don't live off protein bars, but every once in a while I need something, and these are amazing. If you use my code NikkiP, you'll get 15% off your order, and thank you in advance if you do shop with my code. I always appreciate when you guys shop with my codes. It means a lot to me, and it just kind of keeps everything going. Now back to the video. There's a book. I've never read it, so I'm a little bit of a hypocrite, but I hear it's amazing, and all the moms that are within my community and like have kind of similar stances around natural health and all of that, they've read this book, and it's called How to Keep Your Child Healthy in Spite of Your Doctor. And it was written by a doctor. And he basically talks about this, the fact that like parents, if you're like a normal parent that's not like inebriated and, checked out and like a narcissist, you are aware of how your children are doing to a degree that is much higher generally than a doctor who sees your child for 15 minutes is ever going to be. Like, there might be something obvious they spot, or like, I don't know if you're doing blood work, but like, are you going to do blood work on your baby? Like, that's not part of a normal well visit. And so he talks about this in the book, that like parents tend to have a good intuition about how their children are doing. And he also talks about how most childhood illnesses, and most illnesses in general, can be handled with household items that you just like have in your pantry. He also talks about running water, and how like even just keeping things clean is like a genuine health promoting thing to do. Duh. But I thought when you had a baby, it's like, of course you have to have a pediatrician. But I didn't want one because I was dealing with the topic of vaccines every time, you go in, you just are like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm going to be here with these people again that I have to like explain my medical choices. And like, are you going to call CPS on me because I don't want to take this jab? Unlikely. I feel like they've become more open to this concept, or to this idea of parents choosing not to vaccinate. But there was that. And then I've mentioned her before. One of my good friends up here, she is the oldest of 11 children. And then she was the first one that was like, my mom stopped seeing a pediatrician after her third kid or something like that. And I was like, really? And she goes, yeah, she realized there was no point. Like, if you have a chiropractor, one that you like, one that is like very, which they generally are, right? Like holistic minded. Side note, someone in the comments was messaging me or commenting about like new age witchcraft stuff in chiropractic. I just want to throw out, I have not gone down that wormhole. So I don't have like any thoughts around that. My chiropractor, she does a little bit of adjusting with cracking. She uses the little boop boop gun, and then she does a little like fascia work on me. It doesn't feel crazy or wrong to me. I mean, I joke, it kind of feels like a scam in the sense that I'm like, did this really do anything? Not really. If you're watching, Allison, I'm not saying you're scamming anyone, but like I leave and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess, but I just started seeing my chiropractor again recently. Long story short, I was dealing with a very specific pain, and one visit, she fixed it. And I think that might be the first time that I've ever actually had that experience with a chiropractor. But point being is chiropractors are very attuned to health and wellness as well, especially if you found one and you're like, okay, yes, that is the vibe I'm getting. Like we talk about natural health, we're on the same page. Or if you want to know our situation, we don't see a pediatrician, but we see a nurse practitioner who worked in the traditional medical establishment for, I don't remember, 20 something years. And now she has a private practice and she's very naturally minded. She is not into vaccines, all of that stuff. And so I do have a record, like because some people will say this, like, what if CPS does get called on you, or like someone tries to stick their nose in your business and then you suddenly have no record of them ever being seen by a doctor? That can look bad to people. Even if your child was totally healthy, that just can look bad. And so that's what we do. We do have a record of our children being seen multiple times by our nurse practitioner, and she's who we go to when we need help. So like when Lizzie had croup last year, she's who I called. She walked us through everything, got us our prescription, blah, blah, blah. But I just want to throw that out there because I literally think that like most people don't know this, that like you don't have to have a pediatrician. Just saying. Oh, here's the other thing. You don't have to jab your babies, okay? You obviously have whatever opinion you want, make the decisions you think are best for you, but I want to encourage you to go down that wormhole while you're pregnant, because this is something you're going to have to confront immediately, because vaccines are something that are rolled into children's lives. I think like the first round comes around 3 months or something like that. Maybe it's earlier. It's a lot of jabs and it starts very early. And it is best, in my opinion, for you to educate yourself and then make the decision. And I don't mean educate yourself in like a insulting way, like educate yourself and you'll be on my side. I just mean like look into it, go down the wormhole a little bit and then see how you feel, because these are like they're not reversible decisions. I'm not saying, I know your body like metastasized or whatever the word is, like metabolizes the vaccine. That's the word. I get that. But I mean, like, if something goes wrong, and also just in general, even though your body metabolizes it, like, you can't go back. So you want to feel the most comfortable you can about that decision, those decisions going into it. So do your research. There are so many, and I know this is almost a separate topic, though it holds hands with that topic. There are so many natural remedies and things that you can use that effectively treat illnesses, childhood illnesses, even the ones that people are scared of, but it requires you to do some research. Off the top of my head, I've never read these books, but I've watched lectures by multiple of these authors, and I've, just watched a lot of lectures. That's a good way to put it. Debates, all of that. But if you're a book person, these are the books that all of my friends who are book people, and like I said, I've listened to the authors I've read. You want to look into Dissolving Illusions, co-authored by Dr. Suzanne Humphries. Turtles All the Way Down, and The Moth and the Iron Lung. The last two are not written by medical professionals. They're just researchers and authors, but it's like still valid information for you to ingest and then, do what you want with that info. But we have managed to avoid all antibiotics, which on a side note, I'm not actually that terrified of antibiotics anymore. And in general, I do believe that the body is resilient. So whether it's vaccines or antibiotics or illness, whatever, I do believe that our body was designed to bounce back. And so there's also part of me, like someone had commented somewhere, like, what do I do? I got the vaccine, like, because I guess they flipped camps. And part of me is just like, you're fine, girl. Like, I don't know if you're fine, but like, just take care of yourself. Like, the body is resilient, particularly in regards to, what is it called? Antibiotics. I do feel like that was overly demonized, and I still do everything I can to stay away from it, but I won't like avoid them at all costs no matter what. You know, I had to take antibiotics for the first time in like 8 years a few months ago, and it was like a miracle worker. It just like instantly solved my problem. And then I was like, great. And then I started taking probiotics because that's a whole separate thing. Maybe I'll insert the little reel here explaining that.
I got sick about a month ago with pneumonia, and I ended up having to go on a round of antibiotics. It is the first round of antibiotics that I have been on in like 8 years, and it worked like a charm, like within 3 hours, which I know the internet says that's not possible, but I'm telling you, it was within 3 hours. My entire sickness like completely turned around. It's like the bus was going one way and then they made a U-turn, and I went from like not being able to breathe, feeling like I had asthma, to like being able to catch my breath. So that was great. Thank God for antibiotics. When you need them, they are truly miraculous. And that was great. But within the following 24 hours after taking the antibiotics, I fell into like a depression. And I don't say that lightly. I mean that in the most serious sense of the word. I was very, very depressed, if you're catching my drift. I ended up telling a group of friends in a prayer request chat, like, hey, please pray for me. I'm really not doing well. And one of the friends ended up messaging me separately and was like, hey, when my son was on antibiotics, he literally became suicidal. And he ended up finding out through one way or another that basically different antibiotics wipe out different strains of bacteria in your gut. And we've all heard about the gut-brain connection and how important this is, but it never occurred to me. And apparently it never occurred to like any of my other friends after I went through this. So she basically said, you need to do research and find out what strains of bacteria the specific antibiotics that you are on wipe out in your gut. And then you need to look for a good probiotic that specifically replenishes that exact strain of bacteria in your gut after you take your antibiotics. So I'm not selling anything, because like what I just said, you need to look for your specific strain of antibiotics and what probiotics will specifically replenish that bacteria that was wiped out in your gut. But I guess to anyone that's wondering, because I know you guys will ask, I ended up taking this Vital Flora probiotic, which I found out about it not only through researching online, like through ChatGPT, sorry guys, but then also I ended up speaking to a woman in the store in Natural Grocers when I went in, and this is what she recommended as well. And I started taking these probiotics. I also took like a yeast supplementation so that I was like gonna decrease the likelihood of getting candida or something. But it was kind of the same thing as the antibiotic. Within 7 hours, I would say, of taking the probiotic, the dark cloud that was like surrounding my head completely lifted. Like my mood, my mental health completely changed after starting probiotics. I will say, I want to throw this out there too, that I am currently doing high dose vitamin D supplementation, and I believe that that has also helped, but that's almost a separate topic because this was such an extreme shift. I literally think that this could be life-saving information for someone out there. So I know it's sick season right now. Stay healthy, guys, but if you got to do those antibiotics, do your research and find out what bacteria are you wiping out with your antibiotic, and yeah, do the research.
But yeah, there are so many supplements and just natural remedies that can support your baby's body, and you don't have to go that route. Obviously, in my worldview, there are a lot of unintended consequences that I think come along with all of these vaccines. I will say this too. I used to think like, am I going to get in trouble for saying this? But it's not against the law, so whatever. Both of our children have had chicken pox. So it is done now. A lot of the people in our town, like that's a thing, right? It's like going back to the 90s or the 80s or the 70s. I don't know. Where like people purposefully are exposing their children so that they can gain natural immunity instead of the vaccine. And there's a lot of reasons, obviously. This isn't a vaccine episode that I could go off on why someone would want to do that. But I just want to say these things because I feel like hearing words and normalizing these thoughts, whether you choose to go a different way or not, I think it's very important. And I think we have valid points. So it's time for another shout out of the next sponsor of the video, and that is Frownies. If you've been following me for a long time, you know that I am an avid Frownies user. Their stuff really works. It's basically like forehead facial tape that helps to smooth out wrinkles. And I struggle with a deep line in the center of my forehead. And guys, these things work. They not only work in the short term to smooth out your forehead lines, but the more you use them, it literally helps to iron out the lines on your forehead. Seriously, I cannot talk them up enough. I've even had times, this is kind of depressing, but where like I've had a harder day, maybe I'm crying, frowning a bit, and you go to the bathroom and you're like, I'm looking kind of like haggard and sad, and like that's fine, sad is an emotion, but like maybe I don't want to look like that in the morning. Putting on my Frownies brownies, going to sleep, waking up, looking refreshed, brand new, ready to take on the day is just amazing. So I love my Frownies. I will probably be a purchaser. Is that the word? A buyer for life. If you use the code Nikki P, you can get 10% off your order. And as always, thank you so much for when you shop with my links. Now let's hop back in. I want to encourage you to pray for your birth and pray for your baby. Give it up to the Lord. I think it's really important to be honest with God, even though he can see everything and he knows everything. There's something about communication, I think, that is important for your soul and the strengthening of that spiritual attunement, if that's the word, to God's promptings. But be honest with the Lord about like what you hope for your birth, and pray over your baby. But also, this is just my opinion, right? As I'm hitting the mic, this is all just my opinion. Pray for peace and just his peace to cover you, so that whatever you go through, like, Lord, this is what I want, this is what I hope for, please. But whatever you have for me, Lord, just like cover me in your peace and make it well with my soul, because you work all things together for good. And I have this plan and this hope and this desire, but it may not, I just gave myself chills. Wow. But it may not be what you have for me. And if that's the case, Lord, like I said, just cover me in your peace and your wisdom and discernment and strength as I walk through whatever it is that you have for me. And really just like pray for your heart to have that kind of open but focused stance. It's hard to like hold both, but I think that's the goal. Okay. The last thing that I have here is trust that the Lord loves your baby more than you. Death happens all the time and can happen at any time. And every single day, I mean, I'm getting chills again, but it's because it's true. Every single day with our baby is a gift, in your belly and outside. And this is one of the scariest and hardest things to process and the hardest pill to swallow. Being a mom is like the love that you have for this child. And I don't understand it, because you love them from the get-go, and then somehow they get born. And then every single day that you know them, you like love them more. And I'm not saying that people with older children love their children more than you love your little children, but it's just the love grows. And the thought that we cannot protect them from everything, and the fact that everything dies, everyone is going to die just at different times, is very terrifying, if that's how we want to put it. It can be terrifying depending on the headspace, the emotional place that you're in. But that is something to remember. Like, you don't want to dwell on the negatives. You don't want to be scared all the time that you're going to like miscarry or something like that. But I remember I was way more aware of this in my pregnancy. And this is, once again, I just really, trigger warning, okay, guys, for real. But I want to be able to speak openly. Once again, in my pregnancy with Logan, I was very attuned, and people would get mad at me when I would say things of like, if I make it to the end of my pregnancy, like assuming everything goes well, like if they make it, basically, people would be like, that's so dark, don't say that. But I was like, dude, I'm not like thinking that that's going to happen. I'm just like aware that people, I mean, one of my friends, when I was pregnant with Lizzie, she had a stillbirth, and I know a couple people that have had stillbirths, and things happen. I miscarried. Oh, I keep hitting my mic. I miscarried, and I know a lot of people that have miscarried, and I know people that have lost their children when they're here, like Earthside, 2 years old, younger, older. Death happens at any time, and can happen at any time. And this is something that I've really appreciated about like the home birth space, holding hands with the free birth space, is this idea and this understanding of like life and death are very close together. They're holding hands. And there is something about giving birth that it's like, I mean, I'm getting chills again. You've like never felt closer to God. And in my opinion, I never felt closer to God. And also like it's like you feel so close to death too, not only because of just the crazy physical stuff that you go through to get your baby here, but also because it's kind of like, I don't know if this makes sense. It's like the veil between us and heaven, it becomes so thin, and it's like you reach through the other side and you like grab your baby, and like you're the portal for that life. But it's like, I keep giving myself chills. It's like, where did you come from? Like, you weren't even here, and now you're here. And it's the same thing with like death. Like, you're here and then you're gone, and it just, life moves on. And so I don't know, maybe this is a weird first time mom advice, but this is where my brain goes really philosophical, really deep. I don't know, maybe that's not that deep, but you get what I mean. It's not like, buy this pacifier. I will say that. I'll close on this because this is actually a lighter note. That was my last note, and I'm like, ooh, it's a dark way to, or a solemn way to end this video, though it's true. I will say this also as the last, we'll close on this last piece of advice. You don't need as much stuff as you think you do. Yep. And I feel like you've probably gotten that piece of advice many times, but it's true. Babies really don't need that much. And I feel like there is this, I don't know if it's because of fear that's hoisted upon us, or if it's just commercials and overconsumption, or what the heck it is, or if it even maybe stems from like this anti-natalist culture of like, see how hard a baby is? You need this and this and this and this and this. I don't know. But you really don't. You really don't need much for your baby at all. Like when Lizzie was born, I mean, I had leftover stuff from Logan, obviously. We had a bassinet. I had cloth diapers for her. I had unisex type onesies. I don't think I bought like any new clothing for Lizzie for like months after she was born. And that's whatever. Buy as many clothes as you want for your child. That's not what I'm saying. I love getting Lizzie dressed. Now that she's a little older, we've gotten into the groove of like, okay, she's here. There's Lizzie. But like, you don't need to. That's the point. Like, she just needed clothing to be dressed. We didn't need an excessive amount of things. And that's how I feel across the map. Like, there are so many things that are sold to parents. You need this for your baby. And it's like, no, you flipping don't. Like, they really just need your boob, like your cuddles, some clothes, maybe diapers when they're little. I say maybe because I know like in China, I think they literally elimination potty train their babies from like 6 months or something crazy like that. But the point is, you don't need much. Like, we needed some bottles because I was a pumping mom. Like I said, diapers. But I mean, she didn't even use, like, we had not a DockATot, one of those like little square. She didn't even use that. She hardly even, Dan was just saying the other day, should we get rid of the bassinet? Because like, she didn't even really use that. Like, she slept in bed with us for a long time. But okay, also Liz, speaking of which, Lizzie is calling me. I really need to go. I also really need to eat lunch. We're going to make our way down to the lake. But I hope that this was helpful and encouraging to you first-time mamas out there. Just know, and actually this is my last thing. Trust your gut. That is my sign-off piece of advice to you as a first-time mom. Trust your intuition and do not let anybody else shut that down. Do not let your doctor shut that down. Do not let your friends shut that down. Do not let your parents, your mom shut that down, your sister. You have a mom gut. Like I said, assuming you're not a narcissist or like inebriated up, you are connected to your child. And you need to acknowledge that. Don't disconnect from that. I'm not saying that like every feeling you get is the truth. But mom gut, I really believe, is a real thing. So tune in, trust it. You are already connected to your baby. Congratulations, mamas. And that's it. I will, God willing, see you guys back here soon with another new video. And yeah, bye guys.